Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I hope you're all doing very well. Manchester Derby is done. It was a draw. Pogba has come out and spoken at last. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the Harry Maguire hug. I nearly said mug. I thought he played well yesterday. Some people not very happy about that. Van der Beek, what is the future with Van der Beek? I mean, I think this is probably one of the most important topics, which I want to get into on the 8 o'clock show tonight with Ricky and Beth and Kev as well. But and also, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's very happy. Mike Phelan last night tweeting about very happy with a good result. They're seeing progress. Are you seeing progress? And if so, why are people so frustrated? Why is Ole out trending? So lots and lots to talk about. Look, Paul Pogba's come out, so we've got to talk about Paul Pogba to start off with. But what I would say from this, and I'm confused. I am confused. There's a lot of people last night messaging me saying you need a shower, you're in the mud. Pogba's put you in the mud and all you Pogba haters. And I was like, okay, let's have a look at what he's done. And I read it and I was like, okay, he's not denying what was said on Monday night. There's not really an apology there. Why is anybody who's pissed off with Pogba back in the mud? Like, there's people acting last night like Pogba's come out, apologised, said it was never him who wanted to say it and he wants to sign a new contract. Well, that's what I want to happen. That's not what's happened. I think what's happened here is, and I think a level of maturity is really important because we've got two winnable games before now and Christmas. We've got Sheffield United and Leeds. If we win those two, we've won 6 and drawn 1 in our last 7. We will be in the top 4 and we will technically be in a title race 6 days before the January transfer window opens. So there is reason to be positive if we can get these next 2 results. So I choose to be mature as well because ultimately I want Manchester United to be successful. It's not about individual players. It's not about whether I think the manager's right. I want Manchester United to be successful. And when you've got Manchester United writing an article and tweeting it out off their main account around an Instagram post from Paul Pogba, basically saying Paul Pogba thumbs up, then you absolutely have to understand that there's been some level of agreement between Pogba, Manchester United and Raiola to get through this next period of time, whether it's the next 3 weeks to January or whether it's the next 6 months to May, in an amicable and professional way. And therefore, I, as a Man United fan, am willing to do that as well because it's better for everybody that we do get through it amicably and professionally. It's a bloody shame it couldn't have been done last weekend instead of letting this article go out. And I think that reflects not only badly on Pogba and Raiola, but also very badly on Manchester United. And ultimately, I agree with what a lot of people are saying on social media. This proves that player power is bigger than Manchester United power. I think Paul Pogba and Mino Raiola have shown this week that they are bigger than Manchester United, that they can do what they did and Manchester United will basically arse-lick them about an Instagram post that's not even an apology. So I think it reflects very badly on Manchester United, and I think Paul Pogba and Mino Raiola have played this very, very well and come out of it in a situation whereby, look, for me, if you stay quiet, if you do play well and you leave in the summer, off you go. And I think that's where I sit on this now. There is absolutely no point expecting this football club to come out and act professionally and put the best interests of the club first, because they've never done that over the last few years. Whether it's appointments of managers, transfers, letting the fans down, a lot of this falls on the club. And ultimately, they've created this situation as much as Pogba and Raiola, haven't they? What I think has happened here is Pogba wants to go. The board haven't let him, so he's had to force it. Hence why he's saying we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but he'll try while he's here, says Joshua Bellwater. Yeah, 100%. And I think we as fans would be silly to get angry and frustrated about this situation because ultimately Manchester United have had a part to play in it as well. But let me just read what I really want to talk about. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if you didn't see it, a lot of people very angry last night that Harry Maguire, seconds after the end of a game, is basically hugging John Stones as captain of Manchester United. Now, I remember Gary Neville and Peter Schmeichel as captains of Manchester United and Manchester City. Gary Neville ignored him. Those two have more history than bloody Stones and Maguire. They wouldn't have bloody trebled together, and Gary Neville would not engage in anything because he's in the zone. He's got that ruthlessness. He's in the zone. How can Harry Maguire be in the zone as a bloody leader when seconds after the final whistle he's hugging the opposition player? It's just not. It's like he had a good game yesterday and he lets himself down by doing something like that. I didn't see Bruno Fernandes doing it with Cancelo. If you are a high-level sports person, you've got to have an edge. Picking people up when they're diving. I mean, Sterling falls on the floor and tries to win a penalty and Harry Maguire's like laughing at me going, what you on about? I'd have been like in his face demanding a yellow card. He has not got the mentality or leadership skills to be a Manchester United captain. He played very well yesterday, but if that was Paul Pogba, everyone would be on his back. And I tell you what, for me, I agree with everyone yesterday. I thought Maguire played really, really well, but let himself down because he's not a leader. You don't turn an off switch at the end of the game and start hugging the opposition if you've got an edge, if you've got a winning mentality. This is the highest level of sports competitiveness. And Sterling dives to win a penalty and you're like smiling at him going, what are you doing? And then at the end of the game, you're hugging him. Now this is not a witch hunt on Harry Maguire. That's just his personality. But he doesn't display the personalities of the United captain who after that game in a Manchester derby should be so pumped with adrenaline and desire to win that he's just shaking hands and getting to the dressing room disappointed. If he wants to go off the cameras in the tunnel and dance to Lady in Red with John Stones, that's up to him. But he's let himself down a bit there because he actually played well yesterday, and I think a lot of people gave him credit for playing well yesterday. But then doing that, it just shows the problem with this football club. Let's take it away from Maguire. Let's look at what's happened with Pogba. Let's look at what's happened in the transfer market. Let's look at what's happening with our manager coming after the game and saying he's one of our best performances. The standards in that football club are worryingly low, running right the way through, whether it's the behaviour of the captain, whether it's the behaviour of the players in the media, whether it's the manager thinking that's a good performance, the club thinking this is a good level. Do not be surprised by all these behaviour traits when the club is run terribly from top to bottom. We mustn't be surprised by this. We can definitely be angry and frustrated, but we mustn't be surprised with it. Leadership starts from the top. That football club from top to bottom does not know what it is. It doesn't have an identity. And it's very telling when somebody like Gary Neville, after the game yesterday, is saying exactly what you and I have been saying. And he's been very pro-Solskjaer. And he said after the game what you've been saying for months. Solskjaer's happy with that performance and he thinks it's good. We've seen 5 years ago Van Gaal play like that. 3 years ago we've seen Mourinho play like that, and they've been slated on this show and they've been slated by the fans. Why is he not being slated, and why is he being allowed to say that's a good performance? And you know what? It's taken a long time for some of our ex-players to comprehend and cotton onto that, but it's very, very true. The standards of this football club are small, and player power is winning, and that's where we're at with it. Get your comments in, super chats. I prediction we have to play 7 clubs now in second half of the table, or we'll be singing Ollie at the wheel, but still I like the kick-off win over top 6, says Druv. Disgraceful behaviour of the fridge. It's like Aubameyang laughing with the Spurs players, says Zayn Miassi. Mark, you're very handsome. Would you be upset if Pogba went to Liverpool, says Ivan Manuel. I mean, look, you won't be going there. Anyway, let's just get some clarity on this Pogba thing, because for me, where I am now is play well for Man United, get your move, keep your agent shut, part ways. Professionalism. That's what we're looking for, and it should have happened from the start, and it's a shame that what happened on Monday. But what Pogba's Instagram said is, I've always fought and will always fight for Manchester United, my teammates and the fans. Blah blah is not important. The future is far. Today is what matters, and I'm 1000% involved. Always strong together. All has been clear between the club and myself, and that will never change. When you don't know what's going on inside, don't talk. # speak the truth or remain silent. Now, a lot of people think that's an apology. It's not. He's basically saying everybody in the club knows what's going on. In no way does he come out and say that Mino Raiola was lying. Mino Raiola's interview was with Tutto Sport. Mino Raiola's agent said Paul Pogba's not being used properly. Paul Pogba will not be signing a new contract. Paul Pogba is very unhappy and Paul Pogba wants to leave ASAP. That's what Mino Raiola said on Monday. There is no denying that from Paul Pogba there. So I think that is the case. There is no apology in there. Now, straight after that, Mino Raiola went on Instagram and called out Sport Bild and called them fake news, and Paul Pogba liked it. I think the reaction from Paul Pogba is a lot to do with the Sport Bild article, which was 2 days after Mino Raiola, and said that Paul Pogba is going to sack Mino Raiola if he doesn't get him a move very soon. Now that is what Paul Pogba and Mino Raiola are not happy about, and that is what I think they're referring to when they talk about speak the truth or remain silent, because they're talking about that on Mino Raiola's Instagram post. Now, not even Ollie embodies the championship mentality, says Metaphor. Mark, I've done that one. So I think what's happened here is that Sport Bild have said that, and it's pissed off Mino Raiola, and Paul Pogba has reacted to that. And Paul Pogba and Manchester United have sat down and said, you've got to put something out because we want to pick you. And then what's happened is Manchester United have taken Paul Pogba's Instagram post and created an article for it on the website. So Manchester United Football Club, one of the biggest clubs in the world, is putting an article out based on an Instagram post that doesn't actually apologise and doesn't actually say he doesn't want to leave. So I think for me, what we've got there is a level where Paul Pogba, Manchester United, Mino Raiola have all said that let's just get on with it for the next few weeks or months. Let's calm the storm and let's get on. And I think where I am with this is, as I said, there's very little point getting angry about him picking Pogba because he's going to pick him. There's very little point getting angry about what Pogba and Raiola said because they're not going to apologise for it, and that's how they feel. And there's obviously needs to be agreement between Manchester United to let Paul Pogba go in January or in the summer, and that's where we're at. Now, if Pogba FC want to take that as an apology and say that, oh, everyone else is in the mud, well, I don't think you really understand what's gone on this week. They're really talking about the Sport Build article, which is not Tutto Sport, which was Mino Raiola sitting down. He's not saying what his agent said was wrong. He's actually backing his agent in the very next Instagram post. So what was said by Tutto Sport via Mino Raiola is true. The Sport Build thing might not be true, that Pogba's going to sack Raiola. And why would he sack somebody that he's been with since he was a teenager? And Manchester United are just flapping around like a fish on a hook, trying to get some credibility out of this because they've been bodied. They got bodied on Monday by Raiola and Pogba, and they've now had to come out and start writing articles about an Instagram post by Paul Pogba because they can't even get Paul Pogba to sit down and do an MUTV interview saying he's committed to the club. Manchester United Football Club are so weak in this argument, and the player power is so strong that Manchester United Football Club are putting articles on their website and tweets on their Twitter account around an Instagram post of one of their best paid players. I mean, if you're in control of the situation, Manchester United, why are you having to write articles about Paul Pogba's Instagram post? He plays for you. Why can't you get him to sit down and do like a 2-minute MUTV interview? It just shows the weakness of Manchester United. And to be honest with you, I don't really have a lot of frustration towards Pogba anymore. He's said what he wants to say through his agent. He's come out and said he's committed to the club. He wants to leave. He'll play his best when he plays. It's not a great situation. I really wish he was coming out and saying it's a load of bollocks, I want to sign a new contract. There we go. I think that would be the win I wanted. We're not going to get that, so we just got to put up with the situation. And I think ultimately Manchester United, yet again, have handled something terribly because we don't have people in that football club who know what they're doing around football or the balls to do it. I mean, Manchester United should be sponsored by Manscaped. They can shave their balls and try and find a pair. I think their handling of it's been very poor, and I'm sure Mino Raiola and Paul Pogba would probably agree because they've been trying to get out for 18 months, and the only response they've probably got is, you're not going. So I think player power's won here, and that's always a shame against a club like Manchester United. But, as I said, the division about what's going on is pointless. I imagine a lot of people, when Pogba leaves, will leave with him, Pogba FC, because what's the point in supporting the club? Because you support Pogba more. And I think that we've got a good player who played quite well yesterday, who said he's committed to the cause for however many games. Let's just get on with it. And, you know, the future will be written, of course. But for the now, he can't go anywhere anyway. Considering Pogba's agent is also the agent of so many good players, Gary Neville said yesterday, Man United need to never deal with Raiola again, says Marcus Wynn. I mean, I think that's a good point to not deal with Mino Raiola again, but what I would always say about Mino Raiola is he's only got the best interests of himself and his clients at heart. He's not got the best interests of Manchester United. He doesn't represent the Glazers or Ed Woodward. He doesn't own a stake in the football club. So his preference is always going to be the player. We're not going to like him because of that, because we're emotionally attached to the football club. But the whole thing's been a mess. And, you know, the saddest thing for me out of all this, actually, look, we've got 2 winnable games. I expect Pogba to play in those games, and I would expect if we can get him on the ball, he will play well. He played quite well yesterday. We didn't get him on the ball enough. I think we wasted him, and we wasted Bruno, and we wasted Rashford yesterday because of the way we played, which we'll talk about in a minute. If Ollie thinks the result from yesterday and the way we played was good, it was an improvement, then he's seriously deluded, says Dejan. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And Mark, are you ready for the Tapas Pulis masterpiece today, says Amy. Who've Arsenal got? I know you're in 15th. Who've you got? But what I would say is, smash a like on the video if you're watching, by the way. We as a fan base have got to try and stay together, and we've got to try and preserve our own emotions here. This is the most important thing. We're very passionate. We see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer come out after that game yesterday lauding it up, and nobody sees through it. Everyone's like, what are you on about? We see Maguire hugging the Man City player yesterday and picking Sterling up with a laugh as captain of the club and say, where's the passion and desire of a Manchester United captain in a Manchester derby? We see the way that Manchester United have acted in relation to what's happened with Raiola, and we see a weak football club. Your morals and your passion for Manchester United exceeds anything that's happening within that football club at the moment. But you've got to preserve yourselves. Our day will come again. Somebody at some point will realise what you realise, that this club matters. It should be number one. It should have passionate people in it, and it should not take shit. But at the moment it does. Now, you can continue to moan about the way the club's being run and everything, and you're gonna damage yourself. You're gonna bring stress upon yourself. And there's going to be divisions created in this fan base. For me, we're not in a terrible position in the league. We take it game to game. That's where we are. We're not in the Champions League anymore. It looks like we're going to lose Paul Pogba, but for the moment, he's still here. I just think, the club have nailed their flag to the mast. They've handled a lot of things badly. We're just going to have to hope again that we get through this with some level of competence in relation to performance, because we're just in a very, very bad place across a very many areas at the moment, whether it's coaching, players, performance, the way the club's being run. It's a shambles. And I think some of the frustration from somebody like Gary Neville yesterday was because actually starting to see what you've seen, that sitting there and being positive and saying everything's good isn't going to work out. By the definition of inconsistency, we're going to get more knocking out of the Champions League. We're going to get more fifth places. We're going to get more players wanting to leave. The cycle is not going to change because the structure through the club is embarrassing. Ed Woodward wants Pogba to play so he can command a better price, and Ollie wants him to play because one, he needs him to play, and two, he has the illusion that he can change Pogba's mind, says M.A. I mean, look, you know what? Looking at that, and it feeds in nicely to a couple of articles, there's some sense that Juventus will get Pogba on loan in January with a requirement to buy him in the summer. I wouldn't do that. Why would we loan Paul Pogba in January? No. If he's going in January, he's got to go. And the Athletic are saying that the price for Paul Pogba is as low as £45 million. Is that a fair price for Paul Pogba? Pogba is a brilliant player and a huge void to fill. Do you think Van der Beek, McTominay will get more game time, or will Ollie play a replacement CM? Mike, McTominay's getting plenty of game time already. He's a starter for every bloody game. Welcome to the Members Club, One Formula and Daughters. Thanks for joining. I mean, look, if you don't believe player power exists at Manchester United and that some players are bigger than the club, i.e. Paul Pogba and maybe a couple of others, I'd say Bruno's heading that way as well because of his importance. Pogba yesterday had a position created for him. Like, for me, you look at France, when Paul Pogba plays, he plays in the midfield too with Fred and McTominay. He plays that role next to Kante. That's where Paul Pogba plays for France. Yesterday, it was basically like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I'm talking about Solskjaer and the coaching here, not Pogba. Pogba comes out on Monday and says, I'm not happy here, I want to leave, I'm not going to sign a new contract, and Raiola says Solskjaer should focus on making Paul Pogba a good player instead of talking about my clients like Erling Haaland. In a Manchester derby, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer not only picks Paul Pogba, but picks him in a position that Pogba apparently wants to play, which is left-sided, more attacking, which he hasn't done for a long time, really. I think he did it against Leipzig, maybe, and maybe Arsenal. But the majority of Pogba's time under Solskjaer has been playing in a more central midfield, box-to-box, but defensive responsibility, how he plays for France. So not only did Solskjaer get absolutely bantered by Raiola on Monday, within 5 days, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is putting Pogba in a position trying to, make him happy. I mean, it's player power. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but what I'm saying is, how can you, if you're Paul Pogba and Mino Raiola, how can you be unhappy about how the week's gone? We've had a moan publicly, we've embarrassed him, and he's now picked you in a position where you want to pick, and you're going to be going in January or the summer anyway. So player power has won there, and it also fits into what I want to talk about here. Is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer an elite level coach? No. Absolutely not. And the evidence is there, whether it's Leipzig, whether it's the handling of the Pogba thing, whether it's coming out and backing the Glazers all the time and saying I'm very happy with transfer windows, whether it's coming out after that Man City game last night and saying that's the best we've played. I mean, he's talking about controlling the ball. I've watched it twice now, that game. I watched it this morning again, and I watched it obviously with you lot on the watch along. We did have a lot of the ball in our own half. Like, that's not controlling a game. That's having the ball where Man City are happy for you to have the ball. We didn't move the ball quickly. We didn't have loads of possession. In fact, every time we got the ball in the final third, it was like 100 miles an hour. It was have a quick shot. It was lose possession. It was put a cross in and win a corner. There was no sustained pressure. And the reason there was no sustained pressure, and Alan Shearer spoke about it on Match of the Day, and he was absolutely spot on. Greenwood and Rashford do not get in the box. If we'd have had Cavani yesterday, we would have been a totally different team. Nobody's making the runs into the box. There was no possession in the final third. Every bit of possession we had was around the middle of the park or our back four. That's not controlling a game. That's being allowed to have the football. So, the club is, in relation to Solskjaer, he is not the level of coach you want to be managing a Manchester United, a Liverpool, a Manchester City, a Chelsea, a Spurs, or even probably an Arsenal. Maybe Arteta, they've got that problem with Arteta. It's not. And you've got this coach now dealing with one of the biggest players in the world and one of the biggest agents in the world. And you're expecting Solskjaer, who basically his level is probably a Southampton coach at best, dealing with high-level decisions and coming out after games and saying, I'm really happy with that. That's really, really good. This is why we will never win titles under Solskjaer, and we will never win Champions Leagues under Solskjaer, because he's a good coach, but he's not the level he needs to be. And I hope he can go to that level. I'm not saying, people will clip that if we win a title and say Goldbridge was wrong. No, Goldbridge was right. I'm right here, right now, after 2 years. I'm absolutely right, and everybody else is absolutely right who says he's not the coach who's going to win as a title. Never in a million years is he going to win as a coach based on right now and the last 2 years. Anything can change. Suddenly he could, he's learning on the job. So anything could change. But I tell you what, it's going to have to be, a GCSE, you're getting a C, to getting a master's degree. Like, the gap is that big. GCSE C grade to, oh my God, in 6 months he's gone and got a master's degree. The gap's huge. Absolutely huge from where he needs to be. Not impossible, but highly unlikely. Mark, if Pogba came out at the end of the season with a newfound love for the club and says he wants to stay, do you think the fans would accept him, says Joshua Bowwater? You know what? Never say never. If he came out, if that apology, well, it's not even an apology. If that Instagram post came out yesterday and he said, what my agent said on Monday was not actually how I feel. I have been very frustrated at the football club. I've had some low points, but ultimately I love the club. And, never say never. If I can get my love back, I would be happy to sign a contract. Just, a glimmer of hope. I would be like, honesty's always the best policy, isn't it? He's obviously not happy. He obviously wants to leave, and we all know that. But there's always a way back. There's always a second chance, as far as I'm concerned. But I don't think that's what's happening here. I think United have embarrassed themselves the way that they've handled it, and I think that ultimately it's just now a professional situation which this should have happened 2 weeks ago. We never should have had the Mino Raiola thing, because there will be other players at that club who are not happy, who maybe want to leave, that you don't even know about. And there'll be players that you think are happy at that club that are not, but we don't know about it. The Pogba Raiola thing, that never should have happened. That was desperation by them because they need a move, because Man United have acted unprofessionally in many ways. So the situation where it is now, I think we just get on with it and move on. But like, share and subscribe, says Vandy Candy. I mean, the other thing I wanted to talk about is that, this is the big thing I wanted to talk about today. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new, and bottom right hand corner to subscribe. Van der Beek. To me, this is the thing that really, really is frustrating me. And I cannot get over this one. I can deal with the Pogba thing. Like, he said he's going to give 100%. Let's see what happens in January, and the summer he's going to go. Let's just get on with it. Fine. I don't like what happened this week, but I can maturely look at that and go, look, let's just get on with it. Let's be amicable. Let's find a way through, because that's the best way to do. The best way to do it. But the Van der Beek thing, I just find massively, massively frustrating and confusing. He's now our sixth choice centre midfielder. We started 4 centre midfielders yesterday, and when Fred got injured and looked like he was going to come off, Matic was coming on. So Van der Beek is now number 6, behind 5 other midfielders. Now, obviously, being behind Bruno Fernandes makes sense. In a talent position, look, I would actually start Van der Beek over Pogba. I think Van der Beek could have done as good a job as Pogba, and I think he can do a job as good as as Pogba. Some people would disagree with me on that, fine. But he certainly shouldn't be the 6th best midfield option at that football club, especially when he's your biggest signing of the summer. Let's not forget, Van der Beek's our biggest summer signing. We made 5 signings. Now, 2 of them are youngsters. One of them's Cavani, who was on a free, and obviously Telles we got for under 20 million. But Donny van der Beek was a £35 million signing in a COVID summer. You know, that's 50, 60 million in a normal summer. And he's now the 6th choice midfielder. I mean, I think if James Garner was here, he might be 7th choice. The disrespect and the mistreatment of Donny van der Beek by our coaching network is a disgrace. And the thing is, he's actually played well every time he's played. Like in important games, like was it Southampton? He played brilliantly against Southampton when we came back from being 2-0 down in a Premier League game that if Solskjaer had lost it, he might be looking at losing his job. He played well against Istanbul, and we've hardly ever seen him since that Southampton game. And, you know, whatever you think about Paul Pogba maybe shouldn't have started yesterday. Maybe Sir Alex Ferguson would not have started him yesterday as punishment. Maybe. I don't think he would have done. And Donny van der Beek doesn't even get a minute on that game and is now the 6th choice midfielder. I don't get this one. I'm open to the live comments. I'm open to people in the comments. I do not understand this one. For me, it was always very easy to say, well, it's obvious Ollie doesn't like Donny. And it's almost like a bit petulant to say that. You know, as fans, we can be a bit petulant. But, I mean, is there any other explanation? You know, he's not tired. He's not injured. He's played well. He's our new signing. He embodies exactly what you want in a United player. He's tenacious. He's very good on the ball. He can play quick passing. He can play numerous positions. He's better than a lot of the midfielders that we've got. I mean, to me, there's absolutely no excuse not to pick him, and yet here we are. I would sack Ollie for Bielsa or Hessentolt from Southampton, says Tariq. So I'm interested to look into the live comments because I have no idea what he's doing with Donny van der Beek. But it hurts. It hurts. It makes me feel frustratedly hurt. I'm like, this is the player I want to see playing in our starting lineup. I mean, it was literally after the Southampton game, I think I tweeted something. What we've learned is that Donny van der Beek and Bruno Fernandes should be the 2 of the first 3 names on the team sheet. Like, they work well together. They make our team better. And we've now gone back to McTominay and Pogba being fit and get on the bench and also keep your tracksuit on the bench. Van der Bench on the bench with his tracksuit on. Don't bother warming up. And I'm like, I think this is one of those things where you look at it and look, I've had a few people message me saying, look, I've always backed Solskjaer. I think the way he's treated Van der Beek is a disgrace. And I think the way he's handled the Pogba thing is weak. And they're not saying Solskjaer out because they're real hardcore United fans who, you know, don't really believe in going after a manager, really, unless you really have to. But massively disappointed with Solskjaer in the way that he's dealt with Van der Beek and the Pogba issue. So, you know, I think Solskjaer is so all over the place. And I said this before the game yesterday, before we go back to Van der Beek. I think Solskjaer is so haphazard. He's such a tinker man. Not only does he tinker with his team, he also tinkers with fans' emotions. He doesn't even know how to keep a certain section of the fan base loyal to him, if you know what I mean. Because a lot of Pogba FC don't like Ollie because they feel he misuses Pogba. He picks Pogba yesterday, but that won't make Pogba FC come back and support Ollie. He then has the Martial and the Bruno fans who, who feel, well, the Bruno fans feel that Bruno's just a brilliant player and Ollie doesn't, it's nothing to do with Ollie. You've then got the loyalists to Ollie who are like, you know, we don't like Pogba in the team, let's sell him. Ollie's a United legend, give him time. And then they're pissed off because of how he's handled the Pogba thing and how he's handling the Van der Beek thing. So Ollie doesn't even have the foresight, because he's messing around with the team all the time. He doesn't even have the foresight to sort of stick to a certain area of the fan base and keep them happy, because he changes things all over the time. So ultimately, he's eroding himself as a manager because he's all over the place. He doesn't cater. He doesn't please one section of the fan base consistently. He goes from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And ultimately, everybody loses trust with him. And I heard a very good thing about Solskjaer, actually. I was doing the 90 Minutes show the other day, which has fans of a lot of clubs, and they were talking about Arsenal. And they were talking about Arsenal again versus Burnley tonight. And one of the guests said something very good. They said, for me, it's over for Arteta at Arsenal. And they explained why, and they said it's over for Arteta at Arsenal because the Arteta out thing has already started. And even if he goes and does have a good few results, one bad result and our Arteta movement gets bigger. He said, and I suppose when you look at it from Solskjaer's point of view, are we not living what we lived with Mourinho after Sevilla? Remember after Sevilla in the Champions League in March, embarrassed us, we went out. Some sections of the fan base went Mourinho out at that point. It took 7 months for him to go, but they never came back. And gradually more and more people came onto the Mourinho out thing. And I think with Solskjaer, because of that Manchester Evening News article about Pochettino, that was the beginning of the end, because that's when a lot of Ollie outers sort of compounded and went, right, there's an option there. We're talking to somebody, get rid of him. I don't care whether he's won as a title, won as a treble with a goal. He's a manager of Manchester United. I don't see he's good enough, and that for me is, I'm not coming back from that. And I do feel that with Ollie. I don't know how long it's going to take. I've said May. I'm happy to see what happens until May. Maybe we could win a title. Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. But I do feel that the movement is there, that he's going to find it ridiculously hard to come back from. And I think we've been here before with Mourinho. It took a few months. We were here with Van Gaal. It was Christmas time, and a lot of people wanted Van Gaal gone. I didn't go till May. So I feel with Solskjaer, he's almost got to keep winning and winning and winning, because the next bad result, it's gonna get worse and worse and worse. And there's only so many bad results he can put up with. And as we know, he is inconsistent. So those bad results are probably just round the corner. On the other hand, to keep his job, he's just got to keep winning. And if he keeps winning, he might do something amazing. But it could. I said this. I can't remember when I said it a couple of months ago. I said this is the beginning. I think I said it after the transfer window closed. I said this is the beginning of the end for Solskjaer. And we will see. Ollie, don't make the mistakes Moyes made with Kagawa, says Hayata. And the Van der Beek is just so confusing, Mark, says Stephen Cherney. It annoys me so much. I find it hard to believe he doesn't want him, but what else could it be? It's an absolute joke. Wouldn't be surprised if he wants to move next summer. Look, I think this so many people talk about McTominay, so many people talk about Maguire, so many people talk about, Luke Shaw or Paul Pogba or David De Gea in goal. There's so many things that get more focus than actually for me. This is whatever. Paul Pogba's going to play football for us and he's going to leave. We know that's going to happen. Let's just get on with it amicably. Let's just get on with it. Harry Maguire's our captain. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has decided that somebody who's not a captain, who doesn't get what it's meant to be a captain, that's his captain. Solskjaer's made that choice. Get on with it. But the Van der Beek thing, I just can't get on with it. I don't know about you. I just cannot get on with this. Every time I think about Van der Beek, I get really angry and really sad, because I'm like, to me, he's the closest thing we've had to Ander Herrera since Ander Herrera left. And Ander Herrera, look, he wasn't our best player, Ander Herrera. He wasn't. But he was the sort of player that every team needs. He's the intensity, he's the consistency, he's the drive. And look, Ander Herrera was a bit of a shithouse, he was, and I'm not saying Van der Beek is that, but when Van der Beek's on the pitch, you just get that extra intensity, that extra speed, decent on the ball as well. And when we look at that game yesterday, if you take Fred or McTominay off, and individually they didn't have bad games, I think I gave them both a 7 out of 10. 6 being average. So they had better than average games because defensively they kept Man City quiet. But what was the big takeaway from the game yesterday? We didn't get Pogba and Bruno on the ball enough, and our back six just kept going side to side, crab football. They didn't move the ball quick enough. Well, if you take Van der Beek off and if you swap Van der Beek for McTominay, right? There's no way if you swap Van der Beek for McTominay, right? There's no way that Van der Beek puts in a worse performance than McTominay. There's no way that Van der Beek gives De Bruyne any more space. If you say to Van der Beek, do the job that McTominay did yesterday, he would have put in exactly the same performance, probably, but better. He would have kept to his position because he's disciplined. He would have still put the same tackles in, but he also would have moved the ball quicker to Bruno and Pogba with a better passing range. And this reflects not on McTominay, this reflects on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer decided to go with two holding midfielders who are very energetic, Duracell bunnies, whatever you want to call them, but neither of them have the ability to move the ball creatively from back and get the ball to people like Pogba and Bruno in space. Van der Beek would have done that. This is a coaching decision. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants to put two CDMs with no creativity in front of two slow centre-backs and build a team from there. Bubble Wrap FC. And that's what we saw yesterday. But apparently we controlled the game. And as we started off with the show, This is exactly what Van Gaal was doing 5 years ago with Schneiderlin and whoever else he was playing in front of Blind and Smalling. And it was crab football, it was side to side, and everyone was outraged. But we're now meant to celebrate something. We're now meant to celebrate evolution. We're now meant to celebrate progress because it's being packaged up by somebody who's a legend of the club. This is not a new direction. This is not evolution. This is not a United side playing like a United side. This is a repackaged way of playing that we were doing 5 years ago under a different guise, under a different wrapping paper. It's nothing new. And yet, on the week that we got knocked out by Leipzig, to the day 5 years ago, we got knocked out by Wolfsburg and ended up in the Europa League. And we're playing the same way as that manager played 5 years ago. And yet we're meant to swallow this as evolution. And this is why I think people are not pissed off, but frustrated by the vision of the football club, because the vision is not new. It isn't. And we're not in a terrible situation. We're not. I firmly believe that sacking Solskjaer, how could you sack Solskjaer at the moment? Like, we've just drawn a Manchester derby. We are, technically very, very close to the top four and potentially a title race. Although if results go the way today, that won't be the case. Liverpool will be pulling away for sure. But it's a difficult one because the future is so unclear. Ollie still thinks he's Van der Beek's Bruno replacement, says Valabath. Welcome to the members club, Luke Evans. So Solskjaer has the most points in the league since Bruno and we still want him out. No progress, says Strutson. And I can understand your take on Ollie, but during the marketing, was it you who said that we as fans will forget how the board has let Solskjaer down and start blaming Ollie, says Udit. Yes, I did say that. Two really good points there. First one from Udit I'll talk about. I did say in the transfer window that we must resist turning on Solskjaer and put the blame on the board. And I stand by that. But I also said the problem is we said this a year ago and I still ended up saying Ollie out in January. And the reason for that is Solskjaer brings this on himself. If he picked a consistent 11 and a consistent formation and it came up short, we could say, look, he's trying his best. He didn't get the players he needed. What has Solskjaer done since being let down by the transfer window for the last 2 seasons? He's gone and pissed about with his team every week. He's gone and pissed around with his team selections. He's gone and pissed about with the way he's playing football. Like, if Solskjaer from the start of the season had played a 4-2-3-1, the same that he did at the end of the last season that got us 3rd place, and he made a couple of changes because of injuries, etc., but he kept things the same, then I think you could say, look, he's been let down in the transfer window. How many different formations have we seen? How many team selections have we seen? Like, he brings the pressure on himself because he doesn't retain any consistency. That's why he brings the pressure on himself. The board are totally to blame as well, but he brings the pressure upon himself because he makes things so muddy in relation to what we're trying to do. And there's a total lack of leadership and consistency in the decisions he makes. But what you might not understand is, Udit, I'm not saying to sack Solskjaer. I've said that many times. I've said, let's see where we are in May, because I think dropping a new manager into this situation would be a bloody joke. It'd be embarrassing. We need to get a director of football in for the next manager. And why not get one in now to work for 6 months before a new manager comes in? We are technically still in a title race. So you've got to see where that goes. And I don't think we will be in 3 months, by the way. And then, you've got big issues like what's happening with Pogba. Why should a new manager have to deal with that? So for me, it's not Ollie shouldn't be sacked yet. I think everyone going Ollie out, Ollie out, Ollie out, Ollie out. It's like, well, you're just saying words that aren't going to happen for a start. You've got to start, structuring your ideas a little bit more with it into realism. And also Strutson saying that, well, Solskjaer's got the most points in the league since Bruno and we still want him out. No progress. Well, that's a good point as well. But you sort of answer your own question there. It's Bruno, isn't it? It is, so much of what we've done is Bruno Fernandes. Is it tactics? No, because he's playing in a different bloody team all the time. So much of it is Bruno. Now, obviously, Solskjaer takes some credit because he bought him, albeit 6 months too late, and we weren't going to buy him 6 months earlier, and we were very lucky to end up getting him. It was only because Pogba and Mark McTominay got injured, but we did get him, and he has been an amazing player. But how many different formations has he played in? How many different teams has he played with? So much of it is down to the individual brilliance of Bruno Fernandes, and the progression isn't there because you cannot be totally reliant on one player. You've got to show a vision to make progress. And people say we've got more points at this point than we did last season. We haven't played Liverpool home and away yet. We haven't played Liverpool once yet. We've played a lot of the good teams at home. We've got a lot harder games to come in the second half. If we get more points this season than we did last year, I'll say, well, that's an improvement. But, you know, I'm not fooled by the points we've got this season, is what I'm saying. I think there's a very hard second half to the season coming. And what are we going to do with the Europa League? Because Thursday, Sunday is going to be difficult. And we've got to act in the transfer window. Look, you know, we are literally less than 3 weeks away from a transfer window. We've got to act in that transfer window. Are the board going to react? Only difference I see between Van Gaal and Ollie is that Van Gaal had a proven track record and Ollie's Bruno signing worked out while LVG's Di Maria one didn't, says No Psych. And do you think he can win titles if he gets backed by the board, says Surya? I think anybody can win titles if they get backed by the board. I mean, Frank Lampard, do you think Frank Lampard could win a title with that United squad? No. Can he win the title with the squad he's been provided with at Chelsea? Yes. You know, I think Sam Allardyce with 500 million probably could have got Champions League football. Like, so, you know, any manager can win a title if they've got money. The problem with Solskjaer is he should be doing far better than he is doing with that team in relation to playing style and, you know, leadership. Like, he changes the team too much. When Solskjaer is consistent, he's done well. First 3 months, consistent team selection. Last 3 months of last season, consistent team selection. The results were fantastic. He needs to find some consistency. Maybe he's going to find some consistency now. We might not like it, but it's going to be Maguire and Lindelof. It's going to be McTominay and Fred. It looks like he's going to play Pogba and Bruno, and then he's going to probably play whatever front two. So we might get some consistency now. On the other hand, do I think he'll play the same team that he played against City, against Sheffield United and Leeds? No. There'll be changes, won't they? But he wouldn't have changed formation so many times if he had Sancho and a good defensive midfielder and a centre-back. He has to be working positively on what he has, says Udit. But he doesn't want a centre defensive midfielder, Udit. You're being overly protective of a manager that doesn't want a centre defensive midfielder. This is what we want as fans. He's not even looking at a CDM. He wants a centre-back and a right wing. We're only talking about a CDM because we want one, because we know we want one. He's not even looking for one. There is no rumours of us wanting a CDM. He wants a centre-back and a right winger. He's not even looking at a CDM. So to say, well, with a better CDM, he'd have a better team. He's not looking for one. He's not looking for one because he thinks he's got one in Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay and Fred are his CDMs. He doesn't want another CDM. He bloody needs one, but he doesn't want one. Scott McTominay's 24, Fred's 26, 27. He doesn't want one. He's got Matic as a backup, and he could play Van der Beek there. He doesn't want one. So using a CDM as a reason to say, well, if he had one, he'd be a better coach. He doesn't want one. He's happy with McTominay and Fred. We're not linked to CDMs. Van der Beek was Pochettino's signing. That's why Ollie doesn't play him. It's quite simple. I'm against it because Donny is a baller, but it's quite simple, says Dylan Taylor. Well, I don't think United would buy a player for Poch. Van der Beek is to Ollie as Zaha is to Moyes, says Kohler. I think there needs to be a... Well, we're never going to get an explanation because every time Solskjaer gets asked about Van der Beek, he just says, plenty of games to come, Donny will play, don't worry about that. And then he doesn't pick him. I can't give you an answer about Van der Beek. All I can say is very, very frustrated about it. It's a joke. The misuse of him is a joke. You know, there's a situation where if his agent did come out or he did come out and say he was unhappy, you'd half understand it. I don't want that to happen. I don't agree with that. It's disrespectful to the club. But he has been mistreated badly. And, you know, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I just do not get the Van der Beek situation at all. And it makes me very, very frustrated. And I think it reflects very badly on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It's like getting a really good toy for Christmas and saying, I don't want it. It's petulant. It's silly. It really is. But I have no explanation for it at all. Anyway, smash a like on the video. We're nearly at 2,000 likes. I think the Sunday night show tonight at 8 o'clock with Kev and Ricky and Beth is going to be very, very interesting, I'm sure. Lots of things to talk about. The first opening question is going to be Solskjaer and, you know, where we're at with it. Especially want to get into what Ricky and Kev think about that because a lot of people are turning on Ollie now. Even people like Gary Neville are saying that's not good enough. So this is good. This is good. The more people call it out as not good enough, the more likely he will start playing a better brand of football. And I think it was significant yesterday that certain ex-players who've been very pro him said that's not good enough. So I'm encouraged by that because ultimately it's not about Ollie out. He's getting good results, but it's about, you know, where is the evolution? Where is the progress? You're basically doing what Van Gaal was doing 5 years ago. Don't dress that up as something pretty because it's not. Anyway, look, smash the like on the video. If you're a member of the community, I'm just about to put a post. If you're a member of the club, I'm just about to put a community post out. Get your questions in for Sunday night. I'll be reviewing them this afternoon so we can use some of them on the night show. Remember, we're sponsored by the Flick app. We've got over 8,000 people on there now as part of the United Stand community. 24/7 chat. on there. Chat groups, polls, predictors. You can continue the chat on the Flick app. It's free to download on Apple and Android. Links in the video description for that. Growing community and really good conversation on there. And as I said, if you're a member, check out the community tab. And if you want to become a member, click the join button. I'll put that in there for questions for the 8 o'clock show. Hope you all have a good day. And remember, we've got 2 Premier League games before Christmas, Sheffield United and Leeds. We would demand to win those 2 games. If we win both those games on Christmas Day, we will be in the top 4. We won't be far off first place, and we'll be 6 days away from a transfer window opening. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe. Let's hope. That's all we've got. Thanks for watching. Speak to you soon.